Mic check. 1, 2.
Tom, use your word.
Hey, you.
That's original freedom.
Need that door shut?
You want to shut it?
I'm already wired.
Yeah? You
Feel like moving.
you feel committed?
I feel very comfortable right now. I'd rather not just throw a wrench and all that.
So, to ensure we don't get in the way of Nate's chi today, we're going to kick things off. I want to welcome you to the Original Freedom Podcast.
It's all over the place right now.
Located back in not-so-sunny, actually it is, Raleigh, North Carolina. And on set today we got myself, Scott Spooner, Nate Horgan, one of the usual suspects, and one of the legendary voices of Mix 101.5.
Yeah.
Morning show.
There for a long time.
Mr. Bill Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Topic of discussion today is literally around one statement, which is the time to live is now. And Bill and I started a friendship out close to 6 years ago.
Probably.
Close. And I've watched, well, Bill's watched me develop the business and everything we've done back to the first book. I've watched him pursue an entrepreneurial career. His hair is a little bit, it's not grayer than mine. He just has more of it.
It's white. My hair has gone past gray. It's gone past silver. It is now white. Almost translucent.
Translucent hair.
Yes.
So if anybody out there feels bad about being gray, translucent exists.
That's it.
And the topic itself of living now applies to every age. And it was kind of cool. We had 3 generations sitting here between Nate. What are you?
I'm a millennial.
Millennial.
I got a pretty big connotation
I'm a
in my
Gen
name.
X, and Bill is a baby boomer.
Yeah.
And having 3 different obvious life experiences and all having to take chance, to take risks throughout, to make decisions, essentially to take action, I believe is what separates people who are living at choice from those who are still walking down someone else's path. And they fall into the trap, and it's been described as, and properly described as, the win and if game. Yeah, I'll do this, when and if. I'll stop doing this, when and if. And at the end of the day, when and if doesn't exist, literally, because the only true time is now. And that's going to be the topic of the show, which is living now, not putting it off. And I'll kick it over to you, Bill. I'd like for the folks to hear your perspective around a bit of our journey together from a friendship perspective. Also some background. Well, actually, kick us off with some background about yourself and then move into us.
Okay. I was born and raised in the Tidewater area of Virginia, in Newport News, Virginia. Raised by 2 members of the greatest generation. My dad was a World War II combat veteran, decorated combat veteran in World War II, and we were kind of raised probably with that mindset a little bit. It was responsibility of self and being on time and don't be late or light or any of that stuff, right? So laugh about my dad. He passed the week before the 9/11 attacks. We still talk about him. If something screws up, he would just say to us, "Good thing this isn't a combat situation." I'd bring him the wrong screwdriver or something. Good thing this isn't a combat situation. But grew up and followed my oldest brother's footsteps into commercial radio. I went a year of college at University of Richmond, got involved in the campus radio station, then got involved in commercial radio. I mean, made $85 a week, my first job, and I was in it for almost 40 years. And now pursuing, really trying to build my voiceover business for commercials, narration, whatever you can think of a voice would be doing, then that's what I'm trying to get done. You and I met because I read your book.
Hold on, let me back up. What were some highlights of your career, if you will, right? I mean, it wasn't that you were just a voice that people enjoyed hearing. There was a lot of amazing, cool work.
Well, as far as there are people who like to hang their hat on what maybe, quote, celebrities they've talked to. I mean, I did talk to, it's a rare night, for example, if we're watching TV, there's a movie or something that I don't go, I'm able to say, hey, I talked to that guy, I know that guy, or I've met him, or he was a pretty cool guy. This guy was a jerk. This was, there was a lot of that, and that was really kind of neat. Got to take the show on the road. We broadcast from the 1992 Olympics in Albertville, France. Did some shows from down in Orlando at Disney and Universal, and New York City with the Radio and TV Museum up there. I mean, we went to a lot of places. Did a couple of morning shows from the A&M studios in L.A. where they did the We Are the World video, and that was kind of a goofy promotion we did, but that was when I was working in Charleston. But really just working with great people was the best thing, really talented and cool people. Meeting celebrities is, that's a plus, but it was a real creative outlet. I don't think I was ever made for a 9-to-5 job. I was made, and I said on the last day at Mix 101.5 here in Raleigh, I said on the air that last day, I mean, I believe I was divinely designed for that job in that company. Similar core beliefs, all that was right in alignment. But it was time to, find something else. At some point, I remember getting up, the alarm went off at 3:15 as it did for 30 plus years of my life. And I looked at the cable box and saw it was 3:20, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm tired all the time. I'm falling asleep at stoplights trying to drive home. What am I doing? Maybe there's something else out there. So there were some things I thought would happen that didn't, but that's okay. I thought they would. I probably spun some wheels I shouldn't have spun, wasted a little time waiting for a phone call that didn't happen because it was in somebody else's control.
Right.
I can't control them to call me.
Wait for the lifeline?
Yeah. So finally took it seriously about this whole voiceover thing and it is an entrepreneurial thing. It's not just, hey, this is what it's a business. And that's the thing, you can be a talented artist where you're going to make a living at it. Okay, but that's a small part of what you're doing. It's a business. You could be the greatest artist in the world and no one knows that you're there. Mm-hmm. You got to get the word out, right? So that's what I'm learning and embracing now and trying to get the word out. 2019 is going to be, I really looking forward to 2019 as far as getting that marketing and business mindset and getting the ball rolling and making people know that here I'm around here for you. I could do broadcast voiceover work, broadcast quality for anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
From my house.
Yeah.
The technology is that good.
And how many years has it taken you since you kicked off your idea to get to this new mindset with the, how long?
Yeah, I've been doing it probably semi-seriously for 3 years, and I've really gotten serious in the last year and a half. And now I'm about to get even more serious.
Gotcha.
And it's fun. And it truly is. You don't know what's going to, every day's like, who knows what's going to happen? Phone's going to ring, email, text, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? And then connecting the dots is fun too. You get the ball rolling and somebody tells somebody else about you. The referral game,
Sure.
And that's just exciting to me. And it gives me the flexibility too that if my daughter calls and she lives near us, hey, can you pick up your granddaughter from daycare? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I never had that. Yeah. Right? It's that flexibility of doing your own thing. I really like that.
One of the key things I'd like to point out about your story is that in line with the time to live is now. When you and I met, it's when your career, your formal career, had ended,
yep.
And you were placed in a situation of not having a big security net,
right.
And could have easily walked back in to another job somewhere else, overqualified, guaranteed, underpaid, guaranteed, and secure, so to speak, right? Because we had our initial breakfast conversations, around, hey, I was a young entrepreneur. I had just written the book. You're thinking about forging a whole new path. At what age? How old were you then?
Oh, gosh, 59, 58.
58, right? So at 58 years old, an uncommon decision to say, I'm going to go make my own way. And I just want to applaud you for that, right? Because I know what it takes.
Well, I appreciate that.
And really, too, key that up into living now. At what point were you forced in that, mindset of, hey, the time to take action is now, otherwise end up in, position over here, which is where you didn't want to be?
Well, I think, and I've talked about this with my wife, would be in talking about the business that I was in of radio broadcast, commercial radio, and the younger people will debate you, but they don't have the experience, and it's not that it's right or wrong, they just don't have the experience of being a guy who did it as long as I did, with talking to other similar people, male or female, who did it for a long time, to where the business is nothing like it used to be. So it was not the fun job it used to be.
Right.
And it got down to where, which am I more likely to regret in my final days, that I didn't give radio more time, or I didn't take a crack at wanting to do my own thing? Which was I going to regret more? And it would be, I'd regret more not trying that voiceover thing, or whatever else might come down the road. But to keep doing the same thing I'd done for 40 years, and like you say, having to go work in a small market if I wanted to stay in radio. I mean, I've had the opportunity to get back in it, and it's like, I don't want to get back in it. My wife doesn't want me to get back in it, to where we're having dinner out somewhere and something happens, and I'm trying to now, okay, I want to turn this into a bit for tomorrow morning. And I just kind of check out of the conversation. And this was my life.
Wow.
Life is show prep. I mean, life was this, it's like, go live your life, but come back and tell us about it on the air. And you don't just talk about, it's got to be crafted.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I miss the good old days, and I miss a lot of the people, but the business right now, I can't imagine getting back into that. So when people say, hey, how do I get in? You don't. I would recommend you not.
Wow.
But yeah, I had read your book, I think, and I guess reached out through Facebook, and maybe you said, hey, let's meet for breakfast. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, Scot's breakfast. And then you got me into this daily design that we were doing. I don't know if you're still doing it, but you don't send them to me. So I guess I didn't send enough to you.
No, actually, I just quit emailing them. I still write them. I just don't email
Okay,
them.
yeah. But that was, I've told more people about that. And it's not a to-do list. It's like it's
a done
I
list.
have done list for the day. And it used to, it used to weird me out about, you'd say, okay, today at 3 o'clock, I'm going to get an email that such and such has accepted my offer to do whatever. And then you the next day would say, yeah, that happened. And I got to where it's like, okay, the mail's going to bring me a check today for something I'd totally forgotten about. And then there's a check in the mailbox, that law of attraction thing. So you opened my eyes to a lot of ways of thinking that I had not thought of, which I really appreciate when that happens. Some of your other podcasts here, your brother Tom talking about the pre-made decisions. It's like I had never thought about that. That's what mindset is. You've set your mind, this is what's going to happen. I've never thought of it that way. And it's like, I've told more people about pre-made decision. Make your pre-made decision. If this happens, what are you going to do? I love hearing new thoughts, new ideas, and you've really given me much to think about. The whole, live for now, and talking about regrets too, and I may have shared this with you, maybe the first breakfast we had. In September of 2012, I got a phone call. I'd gotten home from work, and got a phone call, and this lady says, hey, you've been nominated the guy who was going to do this, can't commit because of a thing with the hockey team. He was broadcasting hockey games. He's put you up to jump with the Golden Knights in November. And I have as we used to say, I have a thing about heights, which means I'm terrified of heights. And I'm not afraid of falling, I'm afraid of jumping. If I get on the roof, I'm not afraid of falling off your roof. I'm afraid of I'm being pulled off your roof. I'm just going. So she says, now you can, it's going to be on November 26th, which would have been my mom's birthday. She had passed a year before, I guess. And I said, well, can I think about it? She said, well, you can say no at any time. You can say yes today, and you can say no at any time. I said, you can say no on the plane? She said, no on the plane. They tell me no sounds like go.
Sounds like
So I said yes, I would do it. And I do remember you talking about this. You said, I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to be strapped to somebody that's like, I'm okay jumping.
I like strapping people to me. But I gotta excuse you that.
But, and I was fine up until like the day before it. My brain started going through all these things about where if the chute doesn't open and what. But that wasn't it. The biggest fear was that we were getting ready to go out the plane. He would lean into me and go, "My wife left town with another guy this morning. I have no reason to live. Let's go." That was my fear. And it was one of those things. I went down to Laurinburg where they're based, and we got the brief and signed a zillion, release forms and all that. And this guy comes over and he starts hooking me up. And I said, "Am I jumping with you?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Can I have your name?" I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
15 minutes later, we're up there and we're getting ready to jump out at 13,500 feet. And at some point, I had that realization of acceptance of they ain't going to land with me in the plane. Plus it'd be more, I'd rather die than, embarrass myself and say I'm not going to jump. But the fear, and any fear that I had really was gone at that point. But especially once we jumped, the fear was gone.
Yeah.
And that was that was a gigantic lesson for me. Once I jumped, what I was afraid of, once I jumped, it was like peaceful. It was silent. It was the best day of my life. From the old City Slickers movie, what's your best day outside of family, That jump was the best day. So that's that living in the now. What would I have I would have regretted that for the rest of my life had I not done that. And thankfully, I said yes.
I was about to say that what we're talking about simplified is more so just say yes. Morgan sent me a text the other day with a picture of a buddy of mine who uber cool entrepreneurial story. Now, runs the whole Porsche racing team. He sent me a picture. He's like, "This is how I make decisions in 2019." And it was a coin. And on one side was a thumb that said yes. On the other side was like 10 thumbs that said "fuck yes." and there's, it's really like that mindset of yes, I'll do it. Like, yeah, but I'm scared. And so what?
And I think if whatever you want to say yes to, or you're debating that, if you surround yourself, for me, part of that, of course, I'm strapped to one of the Golden Knights. I'm strapped with this world-class jumper. You put yourself around people who know what they're doing, and you have good mentors leading you, and people that you can, get the info from and learn from their experience as much as you can, as opposed to your own, and trust them to guide you, then that's the huge thing.
Well, it makes it easier to say yes.
Yeah.
Especially if someone asks me, invites me on something, or says you should attend this, or you should read this book, or whatever it is. It's like this is already someone. It ties back into pre-made decisions. Like I say yes to this person.
Yeah.
Right. Because I trust them, and I know that they are going to ask me to do shit that makes me uncomfortable, and that's one of the reasons why I have them in my life. Morgan's one of those guys. You're one of those guys. You're one of those guys. My brother. It's like these are people that are going to push me, and saying yes, just as a rule. There's always exceptions. It definitely helps the mindset of living, in the now, and watching you. The cool part about your story, unique part, is your age at which you've decided to become an entrepreneur. Highlighting the fact that it didn't happen overnight. It's still happening.
Oh, yeah. It's an ongoing process.
When we met, because the part you didn't bring up as well about yourself is you had a huge impact philanthropically from, Children's...
Yeah, Duke Children's Hospital.
Duke Children's Hospital.
My gosh, I did. I kind of maybe have lost track of how many I've done now. Maybe 19, or I think I hit 20. Because I went back, I had another contract with them for an 18-month contract, and I helped out for 2 more radiothons. And I think, so I've been part of, raising $15.5 million. It was the largest radiothon in the galaxy per capita. Given the size of our market, that is absolutely the proudest thing most important thing I was part of. Profession.
I know, and I was doing my best to prod you into telling that story. I'm like, tell us about some other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, man.
Because that was gigantic.
I'm proud of that for you. You know what I mean? It's like that's huge. Obviously, one of soft spot for kids. Make-A-Wish Foundation's always another one that I try to support, and for the same reason. It's like, man, watching kids suffer is the hardest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
And my point, even in bringing that up, was that your initial thought when we met was that it would be easy to parlay, or it appeared that it would be easier to parlay that much resume and experience to going out and doing radiothon work and doing all these things, and that didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Right? It didn't. It's not going that way. It's going a different way, and I think the big thing I saw in you was your ability to let go of that. You weren't in love with that. It was your plan, by the way, right?
Yeah.
You know, and we all, it's back to school, you got a plan. And they never survive first contact. And first contact happens when the bank account starts running dry, and whenever, the expectation doesn't get met, and now, boom, disappointment sets in. It's like, cool, yeah, the universe is telling you something. And then you pivoted, and you've continued to be able to just pivot, linking up with Kevin, starting your own podcast. I look forward to hopefully someday being able to reciprocate, as well. You've introduced him to us. It's like the synergy of our relationship, right? Back to saying yes and being flexible enough that when your shit's not working anymore, you
make that decision, and then you have to make another decision. Then you make another decision. You make another decision.
Well, and therein lies fail fast. Right? All these cool little truths that I heard in my younger years that I didn't really get, I get now. It's like, no, fail fast is meant for someone who lives at choice because they are living now. And when you do that, I'll speak for myself. When I do that, I crack a few eggs along the way. Yet I'd rather do that than not have the experience of what life holds and possibility. That is old saying, fear ought to be classified with stealing, because as a thief, because it'll steal from us everything we're supposed to have.
Right.
I won't even say we're supposed to have, that it's possible for us. We're just unknowing of that possibility. So one of the things that, if we have the opportunity to do on the show, is to give the listeners and folks a tool to help them back to that more powerful humans, right? How do we live in that courageous manner? And one of the things Bill brought up is a manifesting tool that was given to me probably six or so years ago by a friend, and it's called a daily design. And since Bill brought it up, and he brought up the impact that it had on him, I'm going to quickly share what it is and how it works.
And it does work.
Well, and I agree. There's people would understand. Most people have heard of a law of attraction, and I don't want to get into a whole other conversation. But they only tell half that story, because the law of the opposites is a bitch as well. So don't be afraid when you attract the opposite first and have to endure a little bit of pain. Hence in lies, it's always darkest before the dawn. So the law of attraction does work. Just always be aware that doesn't mean everything's rosy. Maybe that's for another episode. Yet this is a tool that works within one of these universal truths, and most commonly described as manifesting. It's like biblical as well. If you have the faith of a mustard seed, right? You move mountains. Ye meaning us, right? Depends on what you believe. I interpret it that way. It's planning. It's not planning your life out. It's mentally manifesting your life in past tense, first thing in the morning. So it's written first thing in the morning, and it's written in past tense as if things are done. And so it's a creative process. It's not a laundry list of to-dos. You still need to make your to-do list if you're a to-do person. Because once this is written, it's not looked at the rest of the day. In fact, it's not looked at until the following morning, where essentially then you review it. And the way I write mine is I address three different things. The first thing would be how I show up in life. And so I write about if I was patient throughout the day, I was kind and generous throughout the day, I made sure to compliment others when I saw them. Literally, all these details, how would I want to look back and see myself throughout the day? And I cover that. And then I create endings to things that are planned. So, for example, if I would have written one this morning, which I didn't, and the crazy thing is I've written them for so long now that I will kick my own ass throughout the day for not having done it because it's that powerful. It's like I'm stupid for not doing it. Yet, using this as an example, it would be, hey, the podcast with Bill and Nate was epic today. The material that came out, just very descriptive. Or if I had a client meeting, like, hey, landed the job, they closed the deal on the spot. Like, create an ending to something I know I'm going to do. Like, why wouldn't I create a perfect ending? Why wouldn't they say yes? And then the third piece is just pure creative, which is the most challenging, which is then it makes me remind myself how hard it is to love myself, because I should want the world for me. And so just create, like, hey, today at literally 4:15 Eastern Standard Time, I got an email in from an old client that they want new business in 2019, like that level of detail. And even on the days that if I can't think of something for myself, I'll manifest for others. Like, got a call from Tom that something great happened in his life. Nate, just for Eddie, Morgan, Kelly, all these guys. And then it's done. It's put to bed. It's written in past tense. It usually takes 15, 20 minutes, right? And done daily, to me, is the most powerful tool I've ever had in my life. Because then the next morning to read it and review it, and it's also a consequence tool, because if I wrote, hey, crushed it at the gym today, I either have to wrote didn't go, failed, or you were at 50% and you know it. Yeah. Right? And that's not for anybody else. It's, it's for me. And then
being honest with yourself in that review.
Absolutely.
Brutally honest with yourself.
Brutally honest. Because we are, the built-in bullshit detector we have. It's like, hey, just answer the question. It's like, no, I didn't do that. Then the magic moments that begin to happen more often, right? And this is all getting into mindset and belief of possibility, is whenever the email actually came in on the spot or within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then lastly, understanding that because time isn't real to begin with, right? This is this construct we make to make sense of this fucking crazy world we're in, that what I wrote about Monday happened on Thursday. Okay, it didn't happen that day, but yet it still happened. And so then it becomes this cool game of me taking on my role as a creative being and being actively part of the creative process, right? And that's taking an active role. So just wanted to share that, a daily design. If you can wake up, start your day, write it in past tense in detail. How do you show up? What are the endings to the things that you would create a perfect ending to that you know you have planned? And last but not least, like, what magic do you want to occur in your life? Like, that alone will absolutely change the way you look at life.
And I've asked people, Facebook, social media, what do you have any particular routine or rituals in the morning? And people don't understand what I'm asking, because they'll say, I get up, I brush my teeth, I make coffee, and I bolt for work. It's like, that's not what I'm getting at. I mean, what is if you look at a free throw shooter in basketball, if you look like at an excellent golfer, they all have pre-shot routines. All of them. Every single one of them. I've seen golfers on the tour, gets ready to get over a shot, somebody, clicks a camera, he steps away, puts the club back in his bag, stands behind the ball again, starts it all over again. So I think a routine for the day, at least for me, in the daily design, I've got to get back to that, admittedly, for the reasons that you've just stated. But for me, I've got my things in the morning where my day used to start at 3 in the morning. It was slam bam noise till 1 in the afternoon or whatever. Now I can be silent. I've got a couple of books I read out of that are daily kind of devotional kind of things. Yep. Get my thoughts together. Send out happy birthday greetings to whoever Facebook tells me is having a birthday that day. But that is my kind of like my pre-day routine that I put a lot of value in. I mean, it just starts the day right.
Well, you put value in it because you get the payoff.
Yeah.
And until you made it a priority, you never got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what's interesting to me is, like, none of it, not that I don't support physical activity, Yeah, that's usually the first go-to for folks. It's like
Right.
versus I set aside time to read, I set aside time to write, I
Right.
set aside time to think about my day, set up all the mental aspects of it. Usually it's straight into a workout. You know, I would say the best case scenario, you do what Bill talked about and then work out, right? And for me, it's like you give me the choice of those two, I'm going to work on the mind and the spirit every time for that setup. So cool little nugget that just dropped out in this. And I want to flip it over to you to talk about, you know, thus far in your life, living now, saying yes. When were those times? What were the circumstances? And then what's been the outcome, I guess?
It's been interesting because I think even if it's a big decision or a small decision, it's normally one that's made, I believe, with some pre-done research or something. But I make pretty quick decisions I guess I'll say that my convictions are firm in the decisions made or something that a lot of times people would look back on that type of scenario and be like, why now? What if you had this in place beforehand? Like, did you think about this, that kind of thing? And I think I just spend less time thinking about stuff, or I feel like that I get to a place of certainty quicker when it comes to those types of things. But whether it's buying a car, whether it's getting an apartment or something like that, or whether it's changing careers that fast, or making, in my own situation, being that, you know, I've in talking with my wife years leading up to our marriage about how we wanted a family, and when, you know, for me to think about, you know, something as starting a family, creating life or something like that, it seems pretty cold to think about, we'll do it on this date, this year, after these things. And it just, for me personally, thinking about it, how much I and we wanted those things, it was like, why waste the time without it? Whether it's being married together, whether it was trying to start our family, which we started our family before we started trying to start it, which is one thing, which just goes to the point of, you know, people talking about, are you ready for this? One of the things that I think I got from some of the things that my parents had taught me was, there's no book on life. Like, there is no box to check that's like, yeah, okay, you're ready for that. And to see that, to go through those types of experiences, because I'm a big experiential person, someone can tell me that, I can value that, I can value their opinion. If I don't go through it, I don't truly understand it. Yeah. So for people to say that marriage is different, I've lived with her for 2 years, I've known her for 5, whatever. No, it's different, because now I'm going through it, know it, and believe it. And for someone to say, you know, for my parents to say that there's no time that, like, you'll feel 100% ready to bring a child into the world. Like, okay. And for it to happen, literally, that we didn't plan it. And now to see that, no, we were ready for that. We had maybe not mentally checked societal boxes or thought that we had enough money in the bank or something like that.
Sure.
But it was something that if there was a desire enough to do it.
By the way, you'd never have enough money in the bank.
No.
People wait until they can afford a kid. You ain't never going to have a kid.
Yeah, I mean, let me just, since you're being humble, and I appreciate that, but like, my highlight reel of your life, whenever I look at it, you're how old now?
28.
28. I should know that.
I should know that.
Yeah.
Took me a while.
28. You were a guy that had never played football until your senior year.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so then you went on to play college football. Then you went on to say, I'm going to go work in the NFL and bust your ass, and then get into the NFL, and then work for 2 different teams. Got your MBA at night. Left the NFL, your dream job, by the way. Left, like, chose to leave your dream job because you wanted to start a family, and moved down to where your wife would be more supportive, more comfortable. End up in a job that you were willing to do to make ends meet, yet were not inspired to show up at. Get flipped a crazy opportunity with some cat you go meet in his basement in front of a fire in the middle of winter, and now you're here. So in that, the 28-year-old on average hadn't walked that path because there's a lot of saying yes throughout there and a lot of what most people would view as, hey, this is way too shaky.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what opened me up to. I think it goes back to a lot of what we talk about in like the believing in the possibility for yourself. We've talked a lot about, and I've talked a lot about with Tom on the podcast, is that fear of regret driving me to do those things. But really, it comes down to, like, I wouldn't have done those things if I didn't think it was possible to do them. In summary, what it comes down to is just taking action to live the life that you want to live. For me, I think whenever I reached that point of, like, to reference the things you talked about, had never played football, last chance for me to do it was coming up. Like, okay, I want to do that. Act. And along the way, too, to be prepared for those types of things. But, you talk about saying yes to opportunities. Playing football in college was never a thought in my mind. And when opportunities started to come, it was all this thing. I feel bad for my mom because she sweated for a year and thought, like, okay, now bodily harm to your body, you never have to do it again. And I'm like, no, you're actually going to sign up for 4 more years of that and a whole lot more serious injuries. Yeah. And took that as well. And then the NFL, talking about the opportunities of saying yes, it didn't work at first. I came out of school in the first year of sending out to 10 different teams. Nothing kind of came to fruition. Had some interviews, but the year after, still wanting to do that.
And what did you do during that year?
I worked at a small college near where I was at, and did communications work for 22 varsity sports. Pulled my hair out and for a year. It was a great experience. And coming out of that, I sent it to every team in the country, and with the pre-made decision that whoever called, I was going. And so when they came, when I got the calls and got the offer, it was no doubt it was in. And to maybe the chagrin of my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, but didn't ask for permission for that. It was like, hey, we're going. I'm going. And
and maybe we're not going. But
we're not going. You're not able to. But I'll be there, a couple thousand miles away. So, and just to try to see that through. And when I did see it through, and I felt that, I had a shred of doubt if I wanted to do it, or it stopped becoming the dream that I thought it would be. It's just how I'm built, is that I gotta get into not a better situation, but I need to more realign with what I want, and that all kind of came together as far as the family piece that you talked about too. So
it sounds like you're a guy who knows what his priorities are at all times, and decisions actually are made off of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
and to me, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? But the North Star has actually changed, and I think that's important to bring up for people, that there's a belief out there. I hear often, it's like, well, once you lock in for whatever it is, man, you lock in, you ride it out. That's, and for some people, that is true, because back to, it takes all of us. So there are some people that need to lock in. Yet, if you say that to me, I'm going to tell you you're crazy. I don't, I've never been that way. And you're the same way. So for those of you out there that are that way, you're not alone, and that's normal. What I mean by that, his North Star at one point was just football. Then his North Star was getting into the NFL, and then it was family. Then it was happiness in the career once the family was okay. Then, so you are, this good purpose-driven. You are, it's like, hey, this is what my decisions are being made upon, and at least from the outside looking in, that's what makes it simple for you. Not easy, because every one of them comes with the pain that it comes with. Yet the decision is simple.
Mm-hmm. And I think, to borrow some of your terminology too, even more fundamental priority along the way was to fill up this life that I have with experience. And so when it comes to that, when opportunities present themselves, if I'm going down a road that for the longest time I thought was what I wanted, and for part of the way it was, yet it becomes that it's not at one point, it's time to get back on track to filling up this experience that we call life with those things that are enriching it.
Well, essentially, it's not more of the same, and it goes back to Dispenza's talk. He talks about this one of many ways. Like routine lulls the body, lulls the brain to sleep, and no different than I could have stayed in the explosives world and the consulting world and blah 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 blah. It's root memory stuff. It doesn't juice me up anymore. I mean, and I'm especially not doing it for real. So as a consultant, it's like there's no juice that comes from that. The only thing that comes from it is a semi-predictable paycheck, right? And for me, I'll take experience over anything else. To your point, right? That's why we are here, which is to feel. And the only way I get to feel is to actually jump in the water, not look at it, not hear about how cold it is, not put my finger in it.
Well, I'd like to kick back to Bill too, because it's just even a question, because I'll never get to experience it, to my knowledge, is that, being in the thing that you loved for 40 years. I heard somebody say the other day that it's a job. It's not supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? As far as like somebody that's going to switch out of a career. But it seems in you talking about it that run, not that it didn't take a lot of work to get there, to stay in it, to continue improving, but what was it like to be in something that long, even fresh off Scott referencing something, talking about routine and being
right. Because I did love it, and it was a passion. It was as I said before, I mean, I believe I was designed to do that. And it was not work until it was. It was not work until it was work. And that was, I think, more of a nature of the business changing. And
I don't think the why matters, man.
Huh?
I don't think the why. I mean, literally, because I've thought about it.
Yeah.
My point, it's like when it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I don't think there was a light switch that just went. It was the creep. It was the drift that just slowly. I was doing it. I still had that discipline to do it. Was I motivated? Was I
discipline versus inspired?
No, it's like I've heard somebody say they're a writer. It's like, hey, I make sure I write when I'm inspired, and I make sure that I'm inspired every morning at 9 a.m. It's discipline. And I finally learned that. It wasn't about being motivated or inspired. I had the discipline that when I got off the air, I started on the next show. I just did. Went home, did some more, ate lunch, took a nap, got up, worked on the next show. Got there early the next morning, worked on that show. But to do something that long, admittedly, for as long as I did, and for loving it as long as I did.
That's a key.
And I am a freak of nature. My father-in-law lovingly calls me a freak of nature. But one time, I stayed in that business at the same radio station for 23 and a half years. That just is not going to happen anymore. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So somebody who can do that, whatever the field might be, and they still love it and still have that passion. Speaking of Duke Children's, I know some doctors over there. They get tears in their eyes when they talk about it. I ask them, why a doctor? Why did you become a doctor? And they will, they're tearing up telling you why.
They still have, they still have their why.
Exactly.
They happen to be that human that's different than you and I, as it relates to the why shifting sometimes. It's like, hey, and it's absolutely, there's those people that why, and I would say that these are careers that by their nature create a non-linear, very unpredictable environment. So that in alone, like where's the routine for a doc, right? Every case is different. And I almost lacking it to, I just, even my career, 17 years in the military, it was always changing so I could stay there. Yet, truth be told, look at how many jobs I had like a 4 to 6 year chunk before I was ready to move on to the next thing, and then there's things that inherently just provide it.